We will now go in a venture that will take us a bit more in detail. We will see really cool examples from two people. The first one is Juliane Greb, who is based in Belgium, right? But actually from Germany, and she was also part of designing the German pavilion in Venice, the Biennale. So she will also talk about that object, but not only. It will be a really interesting venture. So welcome on the stage, Juliane.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about different dimensions of maintenance, and the backbone of my presentation is our project for the Venice Biennale, which we did together with Eich Plus and Summa Cum Femma, the German pavilion last year. And from there, I will do a few excursions to different projects or initiatives in Germany. Yeah. So, yeah, using our title was Open for Maintenance, and using this word, we wanted to connect us to an artistic feminist practice that emphasizes the importance of care work and for the preservation of society and the connection between ecological and social issues, so between social and material question. And as you might know, the German pavilion is located in the Giardini della Biennale in Venice. You can see it here on the right side, how it looks from outside the fence, so from the perspective of the city. Someone that doesn't have a ticket doesn't get much to see. And that was also a bit the starting point for our project. Yeah, to think about the relation to the city of Venice and the civil society. And we were very much interested in the hidden care and maintenance processes around the Biennale and the mass tourism which it is part of. And the gigantic logistic and material flows that the Biennale generates every half a year throughout the city. And the commercialization of space, and that is generated through the growing number of collateral events in the city that causes a lot of people that are maintaining the city not to afford to be able to live there anymore. And at the same time, there's more than 2,000 empty apartments in Venice that are publicly owned, but left empty to decay. And here on the picture on the right, you can see the cut-off balconies, wooden balconies, prevented of falling down on the island of Giudecca in the Cassette neighborhood. And due to that, the authorities seem to not care so much about providing affordable housing in the city. There has been growing a large activistic scene in Venice, fighting for the right on the city, the right on housing. And that's why in some parts of these neighborhoods you can see flower pots again, and also activation in the outdoor areas. You see the flag of the Assemblea Sociale per la Casa here on the left, and it's a very interesting organization that is occupying empty houses and renovating them in a process they call auto recupero. So they develop DIY techniques and reusing material from former Biennale editions to renovate the houses and make them available for people in need. And yeah, like that, since 1995, they have been renovating hundreds of apartments in Venice, and they're paying voluntary rent to the Public Housing Association, which are accepting these payments. So staying in a bit semi-legal state, they're trying to push through to organize themselves as corporations currently. And this kind of connection of preserving existing housing stock and preserving social networks, we found very interesting, and it reminded us of the Berlin squatters movements from the 80s, which resulted in the city's program Cautious Urban Regeneration, which from a perspective today can be considered a prime example of how a city, a grown city over centuries, can use its resources mindfully. And the city back then had redevelopment plans that would include the demolition of entire neighborhoods in Berlin. And there was a large resistance formed in the civil society that started to squat hundreds of houses. And they formed this term Instandbesetzung, which in German is a word combination of Instandsetzen means maintaining and besetzen means squatting. So they wanted to emphasize the restorative and caring approach of their occupation. And interesting was also that it was a whole network grown that was circulating also materials, adapting the houses to new forms of living together. They tested out. And putting the administration so much under pressure that in the end they expanded opportunities for participation and set up a subsidy programs to empower the residents to even be able to renovate the buildings in an even more better way. And even two of large blocks became proof of concept areas in Berlin for development of alternative planning strategies. And also around 100 of those squats became legalized in the end, organized as corporations. And this idea of democratization of planning processes and building processes was also one of the key ideas for our project San Remo in Munich, which was for a cooperative housing group. And yeah, so we basically, as we architects, only designed a structure that should serve as an infrastructure for the people to fill it in themselves and to be able to be changed over time. So we basically designed a grid and possible floor plans that would represent itself as beams on the ceiling. And then we had different participation rounds with the residents. They could decide, which extent each apartment had and how hard or soft the boundaries between private and collective areas should be, and where they wanted to share rooms, like these common living rooms that 4 adjacent apartments would share. And also within their own private unit, they could decide how open or closed they would want to live in this structure. Back to Venice. So we sat together with these activist groups in Venice, and also a group called Biennale at the table. Here up on the right, you see Giulio Grillo. People that have been working with the Biennale probably know him. And Biennale has since 15 years tried to salvage leftover material from the exhibitions, which change every year, of course. And they have an atelier in Marghera, which you see here on the picture. So today they're a construction firm, and they have, every edition they have 5 or 6 pavilions that they collaborate with. And the challenge for them is the logistics and storage for the reuse material, as space in Venice is of course short, and the Biennale doesn't provide them with a part of surface of their 200,000 square meter exhibition area. So they have to ship everything to the mainland, to Marghera, and ship it back when they use it again. And since we had this big building available, the German pavilion, for one edition of the Biennale, we thought we reprogram it into a material storage and more, and a workshop. transform it from a place of national representation into a workable, usable infrastructure to support Biennale and the other groups connected to it. And we even became part of them to upscale their impact in Venice. And we started to scout materials together with them when the Biennale was, the Art Biennale, the previous one, was still on. We contacted more than 40 exhibitors, mapped materials, and once the finissage had passed, we were on site for several months to collect materials, which was an enormous logistics effort. It was furniture, pieces of artworks, and exhibition architectures. Many artists were actually glad we took over their material because, it's quite expensive to ship it and get rid of it again. So we spent quite some time collecting things and also gathering information about the different artworks because we wanted to prepare it to be reused. This is from the Swiss pavilion, Latifa Eckart's artwork, The Concert. There were 5 of these heads. Only one was being reused in a school, so we were there dismantling hand in hand together with Biennale. And here you can see the material being transported then to the German pavilion. Sometimes hard to fit in. So we kept large pieces as much as we could, but it was not always possible. And also the pavilion we took over as found, which meant that we also had to deal with Maria Eichhorn's artwork. Maria's work also fitted quite well to the topic we were dealing with, as she dismantled parts of the building to show its history. So you can see the fundaments where the Nazis had extended the building to make it bigger and more monumental. And we had to work around this gigantic hole in the floor then. And we spent weeks of sorting, cleaning, pulling nails, documenting the material types and quantities. Because we also set up a platform that Biennale could also use further to help to redistribute the material. And so we played a bit Rotor in Venice and worked together with a firm from Berlin, Concula, they're called, and they are since a couple of years consulting different projects in Germany. And what they're doing is they also have an online platform where you can buy different building components, but you can buy them while the components are still bound in the building. So prior to demolition, which is smart because then the components can go straight from one side to another in an ideal case, of course. And we also work together with Haus der Materialisierung, which is located in Berlin in the former headquarter of the GDR, Central State Administration for Statistics. Here with the red letters on. It's a building complex of 46,000 square meters, which was about to be sold to an investor and who was going to demolish it. And then it was saved by a group of architects and different activists and actors from civil society that ultimately convinced the city to buy the building and go for a more sustainable development. So it's developed in cooperation with these initiatives now. And on the ground floors, there's a pioneer use while the upper floors are being renovated. On the ground floor, there's this organization of 23 different small initiatives that are all working around recycling, repair, and sharing objects, tools, and knowledge in a quite large scale. So this looks quite similar to our material repository in Venice. This is how it looked when we opened the pavilion, and we also installed with the material, we used it to reprogram the other rooms, the 4 side rooms. So on the right side, we had installed a workshop with a lot of tools. And we changed the entrance situation of the building in front, as the imposing portico towards the giardini of the neoclassicist building, elevated 5 steps from the ground, is clearly only built for people that are able to walk the stairs. And we were not so convinced or happy with the situation that people with wheelchairs and lorries and buggies had to go almost behind the building to use this a very pragmatic extension from the 60s, the ramp. So we found on the Art Biennale different materials that we would use to rebuild the entrance situation. So this is an artwork from Ukrainian artist Dana Kozima, Piazza Ukraina, which would then become our structure for the ramp. And as you can see, we try to formally not antagonize the pavilion's architecture, but to build something, a structure that would integrate in the building. And we try to use as much as possible large pieces, so the structure would also be decorative at the same time. And here you can see then how the podest was built up out of sandbags, so we didn't anchor anything in order to be able to take it away easily. And then we painted everything to make the wood look like stone. So the transformation was still visible, but almost invisible. And here you can see our inclusive entrance situation for everyone, which was also a popular place for discussions and other get-togethers. And we also built a bathroom in the pavilion on the upper right with a wheelchair-accessible toilet. The German ministry was not so happy with it, but we thought it was a very, very fundamental issue connected to social and ecological questions, and also, what kind of toilet, or is there a toilet? It kind of determines how much or how big a radius of a person public space is. So, and at the same time, we wanted to address a number of ecological topics connected to this issue. And since we had no freshwater and no wastewater connection, we took the chance to turn the pavilion into a laboratory for the sanitary revolution for half a year. We involved different scientists and prototypes. Florian Augustin and Tom Kühne provided us with a toilet that transports poo without any water, even in multi-story buildings, and without any wood chips also. So a compostable bag replaces 9 liters of water as a transport vehicle. So it was okay for us that we folded thousands of them during the 6 months of Biennale. And luckily our neighbors from the British pavilion had just thrown out their bathroom, so we also found a sink that we plugged onto this machine, which is a closed system of 50 liters of water running in a circle, filtering no wastewater. And Leonie Schumi and Louise Roth from Basel provided us with a waterless urinal that is gender neutral and can be used for men and women. And for smallest guests, we also provided a diaper table. And the Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Science provided us with their little machine, the urine reactor, which we installed at the back end of the toilet, which vaporized the water of the pee of many thousands of visitors directly behind the toilet and turned it into valuable fertilizer containing mainly nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. And it's so valuable because it doesn't get in, the poo and the pee is separated and doesn't get in contact with water. So we transported the hard parts out of the giardini with the vaporetto towards the fields of Luca Vallese, an organic farmer in the Veneto that composted the poo for us and used it as a fertilizer. And what we did on a small scale in Venice, collecting and processing our poo and pee separately and bringing it back into the agricultural circle, will hopefully be a practice on a larger scale in the future, because our current linear system is a one-way street of resource depletion. While the methods of using nutrients circularly already are known, like in Eberswalde, for instance, the startup company Finizio, which we collaborated with, has been running a pilot plant for recycling the contents of dry composting toilets since 2018, lobbying for the legal frameworks to do this on a larger scale, on a commercial scale. And they even have been developing recently a kind of shelving system, because of course they want to implement these systems also in urban areas where they cannot take so much ground and where you can have composting on many levels. So back to the pavilion. On the left side, we also had a kitchen and a meeting room. And then finally, our opening party, which we celebrated with the residents of the squatted neighborhoods. And on the left side, you can see the program that we started. After the opening, we had 6 months of workshops with different students and apprentices from vocational schools of different places in Europe. And so these 500 different students, in collaboration with the EUF in Venice, worked on different sites in Venice, always connecting to an already existing project of a social local initiative. And they reused our material from the pavilion. And we started at the Laboratorio Occupato Morion, which is kind of the main place for the left activist scene in Venice. And they were so kind to, in return for some renovation works, agree on that all the following students could sleep there. So we renovated bathrooms and the upper floor to make a place to stay with the first group of students. And then we installed these beds so all the students could stay in this place and from there act on the other projects in the city, like for instance here at Saale Docks, which is a squatted salt warehouse used for exhibitions, performances and assemblies since 2015 by a group of activists. And they didn't have a sanitary infrastructure, so a group of students or 2 groups of students started to design a sanitary infrastructure for the space. And here you can see them trying to reuse the small pieces that we had in the pavilion to create larger structures and then transporting them to the site, installing them into a usable dry toilet system again. And we didn't only work with activist groups, but also, for instance, with local soccer club here on Lido, which is also an important part of the social infrastructure in Venice. And here the student tackled more or worked more on the existing infrastructures on site. Here you can see them assembling roof beams out of small leftover drywall profiles. Which were then providing a new roof structure for this container building of the soccer club. And we also worked on an island called Vignole, where a local group is trying to save land from speculation and initiated an educational grocery farm project. And students from Venice has been reusing the Chilean artwork to assemble a tractor shed on site, not only using material from the pavilion, but also local earth. And we worked in Cassette with the initiatives that are squatting and maintaining the houses, where several students have been renovating windows, shutters. There's quite many of them, so. And that's just a few examples of what happened. And one of the last groups, they worked with a place on the mainland, Laboratorio Pandora, which is also an empty hospital, actually, where many different groups are doing cultural and youth work. And the last groups have been taking down our infrastructure in the pavilion, so the workshop, while the Biennale was still running. And they have been disassembling everything, bringing it to Pandora. So now the full workshop with all the tools can be used by the initiatives in Venice. And so the material depository became quite empty in the end. We gave away also some material to just people that were interested, and we're happy to see some pieces of artwork, spolia, back in the city. And also all the gravel and the sand from the ramp we dumped into the hole, which we also had to close in the end. And if you happen to visit the art biennial that's currently on, you will also see our ramp recycled in the artwork of Venezuelan artist Sol Calero, looking like this now. So this is my last slide, and maybe to conclude, I think I try to structure the talk in the different dimensions: social, urban, and material maintenance. But in the end, it's all overlapping and interlacing. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. It was really interesting. Great. I think you really brought together the inclusive design, the ecological approach, the democratizing of processes, but also the upcycling of shit.
Yeah, it's a bit all over the place.
It's all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you say and open up more on the concept of open for maintenance? How would you describe this concept, open for maintenance, further on?
I think with the title open, of having open in the title, well, normally it's closed for maintenance, because maintenance work is, traditionally rather something that people don't look at, that's invisible, I mean, generally in society. And I think that was a bit our point. This, what we have heard today, also this mentality shift that we needed not only in the architectural field, but more generally, care and maintenance work has to be valued much more, and this social and ecological question are just going together and building upon each other.
So a piece of architecture is living its life later on also, and with the touch of new people using the space and the architecture. Yeah. Do you have any questions? I'm sure you do. At the back.
Thank you. I maybe wanted to ask if it's like a very complex project that you did, but if you had like some aspects that didn't work out at all as you thought they would, or that you planned, or what were the most difficult things to organize? Because you had a lot of people to work with and so on.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was all an experiment also together with the students. These workshops, they were embedded in different formats at the different universities. So some were embedded in design studios. So the students worked up front with the material that they could see in our catalog, and then they came to Venice in contact with the activists and having the material in their hand. It all changed everything, but that was kind of the learning part about the reusing, that you cannot really plan this process so much up front, but that you have to deal with it on site. And so, yeah, there was a lot of challenges along the way, and of course some projects also had to be maintained again, but by some other groups coming. But in the end, I think, especially our collaboration with the local groups was very successful, and they very much appreciated. This connection, and also we got the feedback that they also got more response also from the political side, since we generated quite some attention for them.
Any more questions? I really like the approach of reprojects. It's kind of really artistic and down to earth, then at the same point systematic, and finally also building a bridge with the scientists. Did you also find it struggling to, go to the scientists and tell them this is the idea we're doing? And was it easy, or was it a struggle? Building bridges between different disciplines.
No, I think that was very much a point, and it was, I think it was more for us challenging to change roles, and suddenly I'm a chemist and I have to fill some calc in the urine reactor because of course the scientists were not all the time there. So we had been running all the machinery and everything, and I think we learned a lot. But that was the idea, kind of also with the students, that by changing role, by becoming the contractor that builds something with material in their hand, that you get to understand a different perspective and learn from that. Yeah.
So it's you as a designer who needs to change the disciplines and roles. We have a question.
Could you maybe open the chain of thought behind the afterlife of the exhibition, and how much you could plan it beforehand or already during the planning phase of the whole exhibition prior going to Venice, and how much did you have to just think basically in that exact moment after the exhibition ended?
It was a combination, of course. I had to speculate a lot, of course, also on the amount of material. Well, we knew we had all these groups coming to reuse and work on these projects, and we took on all the material we could get. At a certain point, we were a bit nervous that we wouldn't be able to use everything, and that the redistribution would become difficult, but it worked out well in the end. yeah, so it was a combination of being a lot there and following up the things a lot ourselves, but also I think taking some risks.
More question. Is your studio practicing at the moment with similar projects, or how? What are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, well, our practice is not so big in the end. While we're working on practice projects, on research a little bit, teaching, and yeah, we're trying to work as much as possible with reusing building elements, and of course, architecture is a slow business, so. Like the project of the cooperative housing I showed, San Remo dates already a few years back, but there the idea was also to make a structure that is kind of reusable later. Of course, in reality, you always have facing quite some constraints like budget and these kind of things. So it's not always as easy as in Venice, let's say. But I think we are very much interested in in this kind of new way of practicing, where you're considering this material aspect from the very beginning on.
One more question, and then we'll move on at the back.
Thank you for the nice presentation. My question is maybe shit technical. Shit has been used before, like human shit has been used before. For example, the Central Park, they used night soil there at the end of the 19th century, but it became impossible because of the amount of medications and antibiotics that are in our shit. So I thought, my question is, did that topic ever come up? Because you said that an organic farmer used it. So did you address that topic at all?
Yes, of course, these firms like Venice, which we work together with, they have found processes that it is, to the heat generated, it's not really a problem anymore to use the shit as a fertilizer. It's mainly the legal frameworks which are not adapted to this new situation. So, but of course, in Venice, to collaborate with this farmer, we were also. There the legal framework, of course, would also not allow actually to do this on a larger scale. And that's, why the option would have been to transport it to Eberswalde or to Switzerland, which didn't make sense. But you could have also applied like a composting machine, but that we would have to have transported to Venice, and which seemed a bit, not like the aim of the project.
Good shit. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliane. Thank you very much.